The village of Oba buzzed with the energy of the festival. Drums beat a rhythm that made the ground feel alive. Bright lanterns swung from poles, and the air smelled of roasted corn and palm wine. It was the biggest night of the year, a time when pride and foolishness danced too close together. Chika stood at the center of it all, laughing, pretending not to feel the weight of the dare hanging over her head. "Chika, you are scared?" Her cousin Ifunanya shouted over the music, her voice full of mischief. The crowd of young villagers tightened around them, phones in hand, ready to catch every moment. On a palm leaf in Ifunanya's hand sat a small, speckled egg, no bigger than a man's thumbnail, pale white with faint grey veins spidering across it. "It's just a bush snake egg," Ifunanya grinned. "Harmless. If you really are a strong girl, swallow it." Chika's heart pounded against her ribs. She wasn't the type to back down. She had fought boys, climbed trees higher than anyone dared, even bathed in the haunted stream once, all just to prove she was fearless. But this, her mouth felt dry. The crowd jeered and cheered in turns, a sea of faces she couldn't disappoint. "Fine," she shouted, snatching the egg. Someone let out a high-pitched scream of excitement. Before she could think twice, she tilted her head. You back and dropped it onto her tongue. It was soft, slimy. She gagged once but forced it down. The egg slipped into her throat and slid into her stomach. Chika coughed, wiped her mouth, and threw her hands up like a champion. The crowd exploded. Laughter, applause, a few disgusted winces. Someone passed her a bottle of malt drink, and she chugged it down to wash away the strange aftertaste. "You're mad," Ifunanya laughed, hugging her. "Nobody ever beats this one." Chika laughed. Too high on the adrenaline, high on the attention, but somewhere, deep in the pit of her stomach, something felt wrong. The excitement lasted until nightfall. By the time Chika lay in her bed, the celebration fading into distant drumbeats, the first cramp twisted through her gut. She winced and curled tighter under her wrapper. Probably just something she... The festival food was never clean anyway. She closed her eyes and willed herself to sleep. But the pain grew sharper, deeper. By midnight, Chika woke up gasping, clutching her belly. Sweat drenched her skin. Her stomach roiled and twisted as if her insides were rearranging themselves. A sickening pressure built behind her ribs, and then movement. It was faint, but unmistakable. A slow, crawling ripple across her abdomen, just beneath the surface. Chika froze, wide-eyed. Maybe it was food poisoning. Maybe it was just her mind playing tricks. She pressed her hand flat against her stomach and felt it again. A slither, a shift. Her heart thundered against her chest. Fear, cold and suffocating, coiled around her spine. "No, no, no," she whispered. She stumbled out of bed and into the small bathroom, flicking on the harsh light. Her reflections stared back at her. Sweaty, impale, terrified. Slowly, she lifted her shirt. For a moment, nothing. Then, under her skin, something moved. Something thin and long. It pushed against her belly like a finger tracing from the inside. Chika screamed. The night pressed against the windows like a living thing. Chika lay on the mattress, staring at the ceiling, her skin damp with sweat. Mum and Kechi hovered nearby, wringing her hands, whispering prayers under her breath. Father Ejike sat cross-legged in the corner, thumbing a string of ancient-looking beads, his lips moving in silent prayer. The thing inside Chika was still, for now. "I need to go to the city," Chika croaked suddenly, her voice hoarse. "Hospital. Doctor." Father Ejike looked up sharply. "City doctors won't help you, child," he said. "They don't know these things. They will cut you open, and it will escape." He shuddered visibly. "Escape?" Chika whispered. Her stomach twisted at the thought. "We must keep it contained," he said in a serious manner, "until we find the right ritual. And if we don't?" Mama Nkechi asked, voice shaking. Father Ejike's silence was enough. Chika tried to sit up and immediately gasped. A sharp, stabbing pain exploded in her ribs. She looked down. Her skin was getting hotter. "Mama," she whispered, horror-struck. "Look." Mama Nkechi let out a low, broken moan and staggered back. Father Ejike rushed to her side, muttering more prayers, but his voice sounded unsure now. Everyone was afraid. "It's looking for a way to get out. Get out how?" Chika rasped. "I didn't know this would happen." "You swallowed a snake egg," he said, "and now it wants to hatch." The thought was too much. Chika scrambled to her feet, ignoring the pain, the dizziness. "I'm not staying here to die," she shouted. She bolted for the door. Mama Nkechi screamed for her to stop, but Chika was already outside, barefoot on the dirt path, the cool night air slapping her face. She ran, through the dark, past the silent houses of the village, past the fields that smelled of damp earth and cassava. She ran until her legs gave out, and she collapsed under the huge iroko tree at the village's edge. There, in the shadow of the tree, she gasped for breath, clutching her stomach. Her whole body ached now, deep, twisting aches that made her bones feel brittle. And then everything went still. She stopped, silent. It felt like nothing, like it had died down. "Thank God," she sobbed. In the distance, she heard voices calling her name. Mama Nkechi, Ifunanya, others from the village, but they sounded far away, faded, unimportant. The world around her blurred, her senses sharpened. She could smell everything. The sweat on her skin, the dampness of the earth, the faint musk of animals in the nearby bushes. She froze, not normal air, something else. A surge of hunger ripped through her, primal and savage. She clamped her hands over her mouth, trying to suppress the feeling, but it was too strong. Her body was returning to normal, and deep in her mind, she knew she was okay. Back at the house, Father Ejike stood with Mama Nkechi, staring into the darkness. "If we don't act fast," he said grimly, "the thing will hatch." Mama Nkechi clutched the old priest's arm. "What must we do?" Chika burst through the darkness, staggering but alive. Her clothes were torn, her face bruised, but her eyes burned with anger. Father Ejike and Mama Nkechi turned at the sound of her stumbling footsteps. Relief flooded Mama Nkechi's face, but it quickly turned to shame when she saw the anger in Chika's eyes. "You left me!" Chika screamed, her voice raw. "You sat there praying while I almost died!" "Chika, because—" Mama Nkechi began, reaching for her. Chika slapped her hand away. "I needed a hospital, not your holy water," she shouted, the words lashing out like whips. Father Ejike stepped forward, his face tightening. "We were trying to save you, child. What you carried inside you, what I carried." Chika cut him off, laughing bitterly. "You let me suffer because of your fear," Chika said, her voice low and trembling. Tears filled her eyes, but she wiped them away roughly. "Well, now it's too late. Whatever you were afraid of has stopped." At that moment, the relaxed Aunt Chika, still furious, turned her back on them and walked straight into the night. She would never trust a soul. After 21 days, Chika's life took a turn for the worse. One afternoon, as she sat in class, a sudden sharp pain seized her stomach. She gripped the desk, trying to steady herself, but the pain worsened with every passing minute. It felt as though something was clawing at her insides. Her breath grew shallow as she fought back tears, trying to focus on the teacher's voice, but it was useless. The pain was unbearable. When the bell finally rang for lunch, Chika rushed out of the classroom, clutching her stomach, and stumbled to the school's restroom. She leaned against the wall, her face pale with a cold sweat dripping down her forehead. Her thoughts turned to the last few weeks. Did she swallow a snake egg? She pulled out her phone and with trembling fingers began to search for answers. Her stomach twisted again, and she nearly dropped the phone as the pain increased. Desperation set in. "How to kill a snake with poison," she typed, her fingers moving. "Faster now." A sick feeling gripped her as she scrolled through the search results. Her mind was clouded with fear. But something told her that the answer to her pain lay in finding a solution. The search results were filled with methods of poisoning venomous snakes with dangerous chemicals and herbs, but none of them talked about a snake in your stomach. Her eyes locked on a particular method, one involving a rare root known to kill snakes without leaving any trace. She bookmarked the page, staring into the mirror, her reflection ghostly under the harsh fluorescent lights. The pain in her stomach came again, sharper this time, as though whatever had been growing inside her was urging her to find a way to stop it before it was too late. Chika couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was inside her had to do with that stupid snake egg. I mean, why did she swallow it? The pain was becoming more intense. Has this thing hatched? She clenched her fists and wondered out loud, the mirror reflecting her desperate eyes. She needed to do something, anything to stop this horror from consuming her. The rest of the school day dragged on. Each minute felt like an eternity. Her classmates' voices seemed muffled, as if the world was closing in around her. By the time the final bell rang, Chika had already decided what she needed to do. She would find the root. She would stop whatever this was. As she walked home, her body felt heavy, and the weight in her stomach was unbearable. At home, her mother was busy in the kitchen, humming softly to herself. Chika barely noticed. She headed straight for her room, locking the door behind her. Her fingers trembled as she pulled up the website again, studying the details of the root and its dangerous properties. She knew she would need to find it before it was too late. But time was running out. She spent hours researching, trying to determine the root's exact location. It was said to grow in the dense forest near the outskirts of the village, a place no one dared visit after dark. The stories surrounding the forest were as old as the village itself, full of warnings about things that lived there, things that shouldn't exist. But Chika didn't care. She had to do this. She would find the root, and then she would be free. Night fell, and Chika quietly slipped out of her house, careful not to wake her mother. Her heart thudded in her chest, but she pushed the fear aside, the weight of her stomach driving her forward. The air outside was thick with tension, as if the night itself was holding its breath. She made her way through the quiet village streets, her eyes darting from shadow to shadow, every sound amplified. In the stillness, the distant forest loomed ahead, a black mass against the starry sky. The hairs on the back of her neck stood up as she approached the edge of the trees. She hesitated for a moment, the whispers in the wind pulling at her. But she steeled herself and stepped into the darkness. The forest immediately swallowed her, the familiar village sounds fading away into an eerie silence. The air grew colder, and the dense canopy above blocked out most of the moonlight. Chika's breath came in short, shallow gasps as she navigated through the underbrush, following the instructions from the website she had memorized. Her feet stumbled over roots and rocks, and the branches clawed at her skin, but she kept moving forward. The deeper she went, the more oppressive the air became, as if the forest itself was aware of her visit. The path was barely clear now, just a shadow in the dirt. Chika's stomach churned, the pain inside her gnawing at her, urging her on. Finally, after what felt like hours of walking in the dark, she spotted it. A dark, twisted root emerging from the earth between two ancient trees. Its gnarled shape seemed to pulse with an energy that made her skin crawl. She had found it. Her hand shook as she reached down to grab it, but the moment her fingers touched the root, an overwhelming wave of nausea almost caused her to throw up. The pain in her stomach flared again, more intense than before. Something inside her twisted, as if the root was fighting back, trying to pull her into its dark depths. Despite the dizziness and the sharp ache in her body, Chika yanked the root from the ground. The instant it was free, she felt a coldness seep into her bones, and the air around her seemed to tighten. The The whispers grew louder, more insistent, as if the forest itself was trying to hold her captive, but Chika wouldn't stop. She gripped the root tightly and turned to make her way back to the village. As she neared the edge of the forest, a low growl stopped her dead in her tracks. She froze, her heart hammering in her chest. Her eyes scanned the darkness, barely making out a figure moving in the shadows. At first, she thought it was a person, but the shape was wrong, too low to the ground, too hunched. Another growl sounded, this one louder and closer. Chika's breath caught in her throat. The figure stepped forward, emerging into the moonlight. It was a dog, but not like any dog she had ever seen. Its fur was matted and thin, its ribs visible beneath its skin. Its eyes gleamed with an unnatural hunger, and its teeth were bared in a vicious snarl. Chika took a step back, her hands shaking. Her mind raced. The pain in her stomach flared again, sharper now, as if the thing inside her was reacting to the creature. Chika didn't wait to see what would happen next. She turned and ran, her legs pumping as fast as they could carry her. The growls followed her, but she didn't dare look back. The forest seemed to stretch on forever, the shadows closing in around her as the creature pursued. The pain in her stomach was unbearable now, a constant gnawing ache that pushed her forward, urging her to escape whatever was chasing her. With each step, the world around her seemed to distort. The trees loomed larger, the moonlight became visible, revealing the path. Her body felt heavy, weighed down by the root in her hand, but she didn't dare slow down. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she burst out of the forest and into the open clearing at the edge of the village. She stumbled, nearly falling to the ground, her chest heaving as she gasped for breath. Behind her, the growls had stopped. The silence of the village seemed to swallow the noise of the chase, leaving only the pounding of her heart. But as Chika looked back toward the forest, she couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had followed her was still out there, waiting. She didn't stop. She couldn't stop. Not yet. Not until she was safe.